All right, guys, welcome to week 4. Can you believe it? We're already on week 4. Yay, week 4. Week 4 is great. I hope everybody is warm. Probably not as warm.
Yeah. It's cold here.
Yeah.
Chicago. Yeah.
Oh, you're in Chicago too? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, we opened it up. We opened up the windows and let it.
Oh, I wish we could hear.
Yep. Nope, that's okay. I am good. I am happy in Colorado right now. So
yeah, I'd rather be out there visiting my aunt and my cousins and with that weather.
Yeah, right. My mom is in Bulgaria right now. My parents are both in Bulgaria visiting my sister, and you would think Bulgaria, cold, but it's actually colder here than it is there. So yeah. And then how was week 3 for y'all? How'd you guys like it? Was it good?
It was good. It took a little while for me to get it done. A busy week, but I got it done. I just got to do a couple little tweaks, and they'll be in tonight.
All right. Chef Jonathan, how did everybody look?
Pretty good for the most part. Really good job getting that concept summary on there. I can't tell you how much that helps me. When I know what your concept is, when I know what your hours of operation are, I'm a little better able to help you get where you want to be with those assignments. So thank you for that. One of the more common stumbling blocks that I saw was making sure you had management at all times anyone else is scheduled. You really need to have somebody be responsible for your business. And so that really needs to be like a manager or a chef or a sous chef, somebody who's being compensated for that extra responsibility. Another thing is rates of pay. Managers tend to cost a little bit more than dishwashers or prep cooks. And if you're paying a manager $20,000 a year, but you're having them work 50 hours a week, you're not going to have that manager for very long, or they're not doing a great job for you. So you want to make sure you're really thinking about compensation and doing some research. Labor board statistics are fantastic for this because you can find information on your area, how much the average pay is for a executive chef or a sous chef or a grill cook or a saute cook or a dishwasher. All that information is out there. People work long and hard to give you that information. So totally take advantage of it. Those are really the big 2 stumbling blocks that I saw with this assignment.
And then remember, guys, too, when you're looking at, how much you're going to pay yourself, you don't want to overpay or underpay. And I remember a specific Shark Tank episode in which the guy was like, well, I need $150,000 salary. And all of the Shark Tank guys just like laughed at him. It was like, are you kidding me? Like, no, like you overpriced everything. You just threw your budget out the window because you just spent it all on yourself. So there's nothing else. So you really have to be careful to make certain that you actually pay yourself accordingly and not be like, I'm going to make $200,000, because you're not going to have a business for very long if your salary is that high. Am I right, Chef? So yeah. And then for this week, guys, I also want to pull up, I'm going to share my screen. You guys see my screen right now? So, all right. Remember, this week we have all of these fun things because we're talking about budgets and overpricing yourself for salary. It's all going to be part of your budget right there. And we have the knowledge checks. Be certain to do these knowledge checks. We also have a discussion this week. So remember, there is a discussion. It will be due on Saturday at 11:59 p.m. with 2 peer responses due on Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. I will send out a reminder video talking about the discussion on Friday for you guys. So check for that too. Some key points. And then we also have our assignment that will be due on Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. But remember, you have until tonight to get those late assignments in. So submit your late assignments to get those going, get that ball going. And now's the time, if you guys missed assignments, throw those bad boys into the makeup assignments. Am I right? Do you guys know where the makeup assignment links are? Should I share?
Please do.
Yeah, let's show those makeup assignments one more time. Right here. See down here? You have 2 spots for 2 makeup assignments. You can't put 2 assignments into one of these. Only one can go in. 1 for each one. And you have to actually label, right? Say what week it's for. All that fun stuff. Am I right, Chef?
You are. Another good thing to remember with those makeup assignments is they're only for assignments that you either missed or failed the first time around. So if you already have a B in week 1, I can't accept a makeup assignment for week 1. Just so you know.
All right. Do you guys have any questions about that? Anything? Anything? No? You guys are looking good? Seeing shaking heads? No? All right. So then we get to talk about budgets. Am I right, Chef?
You are. And this week, I get to talk about budgets. I love this topic, guys. And I know it's kind of weird for me to be doing the live session. So please know, not all of this is your assignment. We are going to talk about your assignment before we leave today. But don't get overwhelmed. I'll let you know when we're talking specifically about the assignment. So, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, budgeting. I love numbers. You guys know that. So 30, 30, 30, 10. You guys have heard this before because I've said it before, but does anybody remember what it is?
30% on food, 40% to employees, 30%. What is it?
Is it like 30% profit? 30. It's like how you split your money to make sure you pay yourself and the business and make profit.
You got it. So it's that 30, 30, 30, 10 is how we break down our costs. So first 30, cost of goods. That's literally how much are you spending to get the stuff that you're going to sell. So if we're talking about food, that's going to be all your ingredients. If we're talking about t-shirts, how much do you buy your t-shirt before you sell it? 30%. Oh, one quick thing on this, it's cost of goods, not food cost. Food cost is a part of cost of goods. So you want all your cost of goods to equal out to be 30%. And then 30% labor cost, you guys got this. It's how much you pay your people. 30% operating costs or other costs or miscellaneous costs, or I've heard all sorts of names for this category, which is pretty much everything else that you're spending money on, right? So finally, that 10% profit. Remember, this is just a guideline. These numbers are going to shift and fluctuate and move around with your business depending on your concept. But the general idea is you are actually budgeting for profit. What do you guys think the average profit is for a restaurant in the US?
Wasn't that 30%?
No, it was 10%.
Is it 33?
No, you guys are way too high.
It's 6%.
Between 1 and 8.
3 and 5. So it's much smaller than that 10% we're shooting for. But if you shoot for 10% and you fall short, you're still going to be in the average. Do remember, restaurants that first start out, a lot of times are not profitable for a while. So if you're not at 10% profit, don't worry, you're in good company. So these are all percentages. What is 100%? What do all these add up to? They all add up to 100%, but what is that?
That's your budget.
It is your budget, but maybe Chef Rachel could help me out here.
So when you guys are looking at all this, what are you looking at? What do you guys think all of these numbers mean?
Price of doing business.
It is the cost of doing business. But where are you getting that money from?
Your sales and revenue?
There we go. 100% is your sales. So these percentages are how much of your sales are going straight back to your costs. Thank you. Awesome job. So the first category, we're going to break these down and talk about each one individually. But since 100% is sales, let's talk about that first. First thing you need to do when making a budget is try and get an estimate of how much revenue you're going to be doing as a business. So to get revenue, there's a simple way to get a very rough estimate. First, you find covers. So seats times 1.5 for each service period. Now, this is for a restaurant, for a catering company, for a food truck business. It's kind of complicated, and you're going to want to do some research. You're going to want to look at the events that you're going to. You're going to want to look at other businesses in the area. Do some research, figure out where everybody's at, and that'll give you a little more information. But we talked about covers in CE125, so you guys know what covers is, right?
Yep.
What is it, Patricia?
I'm drawing a blank, but I know what it is.
People you serve in a day.
Yeah, your customers.
You got it.
Yeah.
So you're going to multiply those covers in a day times your average ticket price. So in week 1, you remember how we put that average sale on there? You just take how many people you think you're going to serve throughout the course of a day, multiply it by that average sale. That's going to give you your revenue for a day. Remember, this is a really, really, really rough estimate. It's not going to be exact. There are a lot more precise ways to get more precise answers. The best way that I have found is to look at your previous numbers from the year before. So when you're going through your business, you want to take really detailed records. Write down what the weather was like. Write down if there was an event in town. Write down your average ticket for that day. How many covers you did. How much staff you had. All of these numbers are going to help you next year. All of this information is going to help you next year, because if it's downpouring outside, what do you think that's going to do to a restaurant's business?
You won't have much business at all.
A lot of times it tanks.
Yeah.
What do you think it does to a food truck's business?
Probably kills it because no one will be out.
How many food trucks are you Chicago folks seeing outside right now?
None.
But next year, if it's 60 degrees today?
Yeah, there'll be quite a few out. Yeah, and they were always posting where they're going to be at. Yep.
So that's why you really want to have detailed records. As much information as you can possibly get in those notes, that's what you want. Because next year when you're looking at it, you can be like, okay, well, we only did this much sales, but it was -60 outside. So that might have something to do with it. And you want to look around that day and kind of figure it out. It's a little bit of an art. It's a little bit of a science. It's fun for me anyway.
Do you guys remember what that word is called when you're looking at the history to guesstimate what the future may be? Begins with an F. Forecasting, right? And if you ever forget that, remember the Weather Channel they are doing a forecast. They are trying to look ahead with the information they have to determine what the weather is going to be. So that is why they do a forecast. Am I right, Chef?
That's awesome. I honestly would not have thought to make that connection, so thank you. So that's kind of sales forecasting in a nutshell. That can be a really in-depth conversation, and so it's definitely worth doing a little more research on. But next up, we're going to start looking at our costs. So first, let's talk about cost of goods sold. So if 30% of your revenue is going back to cost of goods sold, what do you think? Do my fountain drinks cost me as much as my steak?
Oh.
No. I am going to make a much bigger margin, a much better margin on my beverages than I am on my steak. So you want to break these out categorically. Food, beverage, retail, they're all probably going to have different cost percentages. But at the end of the day, you want them all to come out to be 30%. Is your ideal for your concept to have a bunch of scratch-made items? Or are you going to have all pre-made stuff that you just drop in the fryer and shove out the window as quick as you can? This is going to affect your food costs, right? Because as we've talked about, all that pre-made stuff, we pay more money for because we're paying somebody else to do all that labor. So when we buy a bunch of pre-made items, we see our labor costs drop, but our food costs rise. Conversely, if we're doing everything from scratch, you're probably paying less for your food, but more for your ingredients, right? Does that make sense? Yes,
Yes,
no,
Chef.
maybe?
That makes sense. All right.
Yep. Got it.
So, yeah, you want to think about your concept and figure out where on that spectrum you're going to fall. Chances are you're not going to buy everything pre-made, and you're not going to make everything from scratch in most kitchens. You're going to be somewhere in between, but you'll probably lean one way or the other. So you want food cost and labor cost to balance each other out to be about 30% each. Pre-made, you might be up towards that 35% mark, which means your labor better be down at 25%. If you're all scratch, maybe you're down by 25% food cost or cost of goods sold. And your labor cost is up at 35%. So you see as one goes down, hopefully the other one goes up and vice versa. Okay. So the first step in creating your budget for your cost of goods sold is to figure out what those goods are. What are you going to be selling? Create your menu and go dish by dish. Every single dish you create, write down every single thing you use in that dish. The oil, the salt, the pepper, the steak, the potatoes, the butter, everything. And you want to keep a running list. You want to create that inventory that I know you guys talked about back in 187, but it's been a while, so I figured it was worth a refresher. That inventory list, you can then go to different vendors and start to price out all of those different ingredients individually and start to pull that budget together. Then you get to do the fun part, which is shopping. You get to go to food shows, talk to sales reps, go online, do some research. This can be horrible if you approach it with a bad attitude. And it can be awesome if you're excited about it because you're just looking at food all day, right? And if we don't like looking at food, this is a weird place to be, right? Do you guys have any questions about cost of goods sold? No? Doing pretty good? All right, I'll just keep going then.
More questions. You broke it down really good.
Oh, thank you. It's always nice to hear. So next up, we're going to talk about labor costs. How much are you paying your people? As I said, this is, sorry, are you saying?
Actually, that was Alexa. I heard you. So that was my bad.
I'm going to unplug my Alexa now. Labor costs, 30%. Remember, once again, this is just a guideline. Might be lower, might be higher. Depends on where your concept falls in that. Pre-made or scratch kitchen. It depends on how you approach your business. But you want to balance it with that food cost. And I can't stress that enough, guys. Really important. So when you're looking at budgeting for your labor, I would start with management. This is also the people you're going to want to hire first. Why is that?
That's how you create your staff and knowing whatever other employees that you're going to need about helping them.
Yeah. Why else would I want to start with my management when hiring?
Make sure that they're experienced and they know what they're doing.
You got it. These need to be the most experienced people that I'm hiring. I need to find the right management team. These people should be in line with my mission statement. They should be in line with my goals and be excited about my goals for my business. If I hire somebody who's like, I am so stoked about McDonald's, and that's the only food I want to cook, but my concept is the French Laundry, there's going to be a problem there. They might be able to pull it off, but they're not going to be particularly happy about it. And you need your passion and your enthusiasm to carry through your managers to your staff. So they not only need to be the most experienced, but they're the hardest people to find because they really have to line up with your culture. Also, they get paid the most. So they get paid that salary. And with that, that's called a fixed cost. You're going to pay them the same amount whether they work 20 hours or 60 hours. You know exactly what you're paying your salaried employees. By the way, they should not be working 20 hours most weeks unless you just crush them the week before. So yeah, the more skill, the harder it is to find. So you kind of want to work out your whole kitchen positions and start at the most skilled and work your way down to the least skilled positions. Look at those statistics that you can find online. Figure out how much you want to pay each position before you start advertising for that position, before you start interviewing for that position. That way you know what your budget is. Again, scratch kitchen, you might be up towards the 35% labor cost. That hurts to look at, but you might be. If you're mostly pre-made, you're probably going to be lower on that spectrum of 25, 22 even % labor cost. The more pre-made items you have, the lower that labor cost should be. So that is labor cost. Any questions about that one? I'm just going to be silent until somebody speaks up.
Any questions at all? And remember, guys, these numbers are a baseline for you guys to go off of. So if you're like, oh my God, I need it to be at exactly 30%, don't worry. It's not. These are the numbers we gave you to be consistent throughout the program. So it's a baseline. Right? Right, Chef, that's
So
correct.
our numbers don't have to be the exact. Is that what?
Correct.
Okay.
As long as they all balance each other out. So
To make
you want
100.
Sorry?
To make 100.
To make 90 or 95, because
Oh, okay.
that last little chunk is going to be your profit, right?
Right, because it's 3 to 5% profit.
That's the average. If you can be making 10%, that's awesome, and I'm all for it, right?
On paper, right, Chef John?
On paper. Yes, very rarely do things go according to plan. But that's another good reason to plan for a little more extra breathing room for your business in that profit category, which we are totally going to talk about in just a few minutes here.
Because remember, guys, we are in an industry of pennies, right? We're counting every single penny, every single thing. Industry of pennies.
What about healthcare if you wanted to provide benefits for?
Yes. So that is a tricky question. I've always put it under labor cost.
Yeah.
Because I'm paying my people, and that is part of having my people as employees. So all those other costs that goes with having them as an employee, if it's you that's costing me money as my cook or my sous chef, I'm going to put that into labor cost. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm just going to keep cruising here. Next up, we're talking about that operating costs category. Again, that's pretty much everything else. But when I say everything else, what would be here? How about you, Patricia? Or Michael?
How about rent? Rent?
Like the rent, the lights, and all that.
Utility.
Yeah,
Perfect.
think of everything that you pay for now in your house. What do you pay for?
It's basically all your utilities and
Yeah,
everything.
that's what I was just saying. Utilities,
Trash, paper goods.
furniture.
Tables, chairs, I see in
Yeah.
the chat here.
Water, sometimes you get to pay for water.
Water, electricity, cable. If you're a sports bar and you don't pay for cable.
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi, yes. If it's not food or something that you're selling, and it's not salaries or something for your people, it's going to be in this operating costs category. Now, when you are thinking about your budget, you want to make basically an inventory list of all those operating costs. Really rack your brains for every penny that you might be spending in your business. You want that list together of everything that you are going to be spending money on before you start your business. You do not want those surprises. That would be rough. And you want to shop for as much as you can right now before you start your business, because these are the hardest costs to have meaningful impact on. Why do you think that is?
Well, if you don't have the monies right, it can always take away from whatever you set your budget as.
That's true. Why else would, if I sign a lease on a building, can I then go 6 months from now and say, you know what, they're cheaper over there, I'm going over there?
You can't break that lease.
Breaking your contract.
Exactly.
And the relationship too.
Cable, rent, insurance, a little less so, but a lot of these are contracts. And you will pay tons of money if you decide you have to break those contracts.
Chef Jonathan, how long are usual lease agreements for?
You beat me to it. I see Michael saying 5 years. 10 years, Nicole. 2 years, Edith. All of these are good answers. I don't think I've ever seen a commercial lease for 1 year or less than 1 year.
I've never seen one for less than 5 years.
I've seen 3. I've seen 5, more likely. And I've seen a lot of 7 and 10s. So commercial space, commercial real estate is not cheap. And these contracts, you're stuck with. If your business goes under, that landlord still wants their rent. And how much do you think a commercial space runs?
Depending on the square footage.
That's a good answer. How much per square foot do you think it costs to rent a commercial space?
Couple thousand.
It is definitely thousands of dollars. I have seen as low as $22 a square foot for 1,600 square feet. Think about how big restaurants are. Think about how big just that front of space is in your local cafe or bakery. And then think about how much kitchen space is behind that. You're paying per square foot. It's exorbitantly expensive. Be prepared, because you can't change that. So shop around before you sign a lease, because once you sign a lease, you're gonna have to deal with it. 100,000 could be, 35,000 could be. It really depends on the size of the space. But do know that when you look at your homework assignment, that's actually really low rent.
And remember too, because they'll do the great job of pitching you. It's like $20 per square foot, but then you start reading the fine print to see where it's like, well, security is like an additional 50 cents per square foot, plus the marketing, if we're going to do marketing, and the landscaping and maintenance and that kind of stuff. So it all adds up. So that $20 all of a sudden turned into $45 per square foot pretty quickly.
Yeah. So I love that we just talked about that.
For that.
It is super important to look at those things before you start, because you can always change up your staff or change up your menu and have meaningful impact on labor and cost of goods. But you can't change up your lease. You can't change up your cable as nearly as easily as you might think. So, really important to shop around for these. And that is operating costs. Questions about that one? Chance for you to yell at me, maybe? No? All right.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I'm trying to. Okay, so all my operating costs, we're supposed to show you or map it out so that you can see it?
Nope. Remember, this is not your assignment. This is just information about budgeting, the bigger picture. We're going to get to your assignment pretty quick here. We got one more category to cover, and then we're going to talk specifically about this week's assignment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Marketing. Marketing goes under operating costs?
Yes. Which we're going to talk in great detail about next week.
Yeah, we are.
All right. So next up is profit, that 10%. Here's hoping, right? So 10% is an ideal. Any of you remember how much that average was?
3%.
3 to 5.
3 to 5, you got it. So if you're not making 10%, that is okay. So remember, this is a percentage of your sales. And really what this is what's left over, or you could do out of your home. Business utilities are different than home utilities and cable and internet. All those things are going to have very dramatic differences when you're talking about it as a business than as a homeowner. Does that make sense, Lisa?
Think of it this way, Lisa. There is a restaurant that was in town that picked the perfect location, or so they thought, and it turned out that once they put all the commercial equipment in, there wasn't enough electricity to actually run all of the equipment. And that is the main difference. And especially if you look at gas lines, because being the plumber's daughter that I am, the gas line is actually a different size going to your residential house versus a commercial property. Because me being how I was like, I want a commercial oven in my house, but soon found out that in order to do that, you need to change the piping to get that bigger flow.
Yeah. Okay, so back to our slides here. Maybe. There we go. All right. So remember, it's your sales. It all goes back to revenue, each of these percentages. So when you're looking at your sales, keep track of what you're selling, and you want to categorize those. So what do I mean by categorize your sales? What different categories would I have?
Drinks, dairy.
Your frozen
Pots and pans, stuff you need to cook with.
equipment.
Not so much equipment or pots and pans. Those are going to be costs that we're going to take care of elsewhere. We're talking about our sales, what we're actually selling. So
food?
I heard beverage. I heard a lot of different categories of food.
Desserts.
Maybe dessert. Why do I want to separate these out?
From your frozen to your unrefrigerated.
Well,
The accurate inventory list.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. I think Jennifer?
Jennifer, did you say inventory list?
No, that was Yana.
Someone else did.
But accurate inventory list.
So inventory is important, but we want to have more of a general food sales category because you're going to have dairy and meat and starch and dry storage and frozen food all on one plate, right? So you're probably not going to be able to categorize your sales quite to that level. But if you separate it out by your costs. So think about when we talked about menus and we said, your appetizers might have different costs than your entrees and different cost percentages than your entrees. You want it all to equal out to be 30%, but you want to categorize your sales the same way you're categorizing those costs, because then you can have that direct comparison. And when something's not right, you can track it down. You can say, well, I had $1,000 in appetizer sales, so I should have $300 in appetizer costs. But if that's not how it is, then I know I need to look at my appetizers and figure out why it's not right. That's why we want to categorize these things differently. So usually you're not going to categorize your sales too detailed. It's going to be a little more generic: food, beverage. Maybe you split beverage into alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverage. Retail would be its own thing. If you're running catering out of your kitchen, that would be its own line. Does that make sense?
So you're grouping it. You're doing groups. Okay.
Exactly. That's all I mean by categories. It's just groups of your sales. You'll have your total sales number, but you'll also have each of these different categories. So you can say, I had $7,000 in food sales and I had $10,000 in beverage sales.
And remember too, because if you're selling merchandise, you're going to want to know how much merchandise you're selling. If you're selling like chef coats with a logo on it, if you have little chapstick things that you're doing, those you're going to want to know, like, oh, I made an extra $2,000 this month, but where did that money come from? And if you don't have it categorized, you're going to have no idea that it came from the merchandise that you just sold.
All right. So now, as promised, I'm going to talk about the assignment. This week's assignment is a profit and loss sheet. So what a profit and loss sheet, or P&L, it's just a factual statement of what's happening in your business. It's all the numbers. What are your costs and what are your sales? And it's all a skill, reading one of these. It takes practice, it takes time, just like any other skill, to get good at reading these. So if you're struggling at first, that's okay, that's normal. But the more you see profit and loss sheets, the easier it will be to pull the information you want out of them. So you can compare this to your budget to see how you're doing with your budget, because this just tells you exactly what your business is doing. So when you're looking at a profit and loss sheet, revenue is going to be right up top. That's going to be, what's another word for revenue?
Sales.
You got it, sales. Then you're going to have all your costs, and they're going to have categories. So your cost of goods sold will be a category, and then labor, and then you'll have your operating costs. And in each of those categories, there's going to be a bunch of numbers, but we're going to break it down so it's really not too bad. Remember, on this assignment, all three of these businesses should be at that 30, 30, 30, 10. 30% cost of goods, 30% labor, 30% operating costs. And then at the very bottom is your total. That is your sales minus all your costs. This is what's left over. If it's negative, you're operating at a loss. You're spending more money than you're making. My suggestion would be to start at the bottom and work your way up. So what do I mean by that? This is your homework assignment. It's a bunch of numbers, right? You're going to answer these questions for 3 different businesses. Identify at least 2 cost problems and provide at least 2 solutions for each of those problems. So remember, start at the bottom. So if this will go, there we go. So we've got all our numbers, and remember, we've got our sales or revenue at the top, and then we've got all of our costs, and then at the very bottom, we have our profit and loss, our net. So we're gonna start at the very bottom. How are we doing as a business? So Janet's Grand Events Catering Company has 0 on that bottom line. What does that mean?
Just starting.
They're not just starting. Dante, you said evened out.
She didn't make any money.
She didn't make any money, but she also didn't lose any money.
So she broke even.
She broke even. She made exactly the same amount that she spent, which is unusual, I will say. So then each of these categories has a total at the bottom of the category. So take a look at those totals. So we've got our total revenue up top. She did $5,560 in sales. And then we have our category totals. Cost of goods sold, COGS. She spent $1,610 on her costs, not her costs. She spent $1,610 on the goods that she sold. So what we want to do with these numbers is compare our category totals to our revenue. And we want to take these one at a time. So first up is cost of goods sold. So just looking at this number, what do you guys think? Is this pretty good or not so good when you look at 1610 compared with 5560? Nicole, you're way ahead of me. Go ahead, Yana.
Is this per month?
Let's say it's per week. It can be per month. P&Ls are really the amount of time that you set them for.
Cost of goods sold is reasonable, but it's a bit high.
Great. So how did you know that? What's the best way to figure out what percent cost you're at? Wayne, I know you got this.
I wanted to give someone else the opportunity to, yeah.
All right.
You repeat the question?
How do I figure out what percent cost my cost of goods is at? Divide, Dante. I love it.
30, right?
Sorry?
Divided by the 30?
Nope, you're actually going to divide it by your revenue, your sales. Remember, cost divided by sales gives you your cost percentage. So if we take that 1610 and we divide it by our revenue, 5560, we get our percentage. So what percent cost of goods is that?
29.
29.
You got it. So is that good or bad for Janet's Grand Events Catering here?
Bad, because she's almost at 30.
Yeah, but she's below 30.
And so she did pretty good on that.
She's all right.
Yeah.
She's not outstanding by any means, but she's doing all right.
She's at the line.
Yeah. So now we want to go on to our next category. Labor costs. $25.50.
Too high.
Way too high. So now that we've found a problem, right? We figured out her labor cost is too high. So we've identified one of those problems. So now to figure out some solutions, put yourself in Janet's shoes. Why might her labor cost be high?
Too many people on the clock at the same time that you don't need. If it's so, you need to let someone go.
Perfect.
Just go early.
Yep. So that would be one solution to that problem. So I want to have two solutions to the problem. Labor cost is too high.
One of the more complex solutions to this is to analyze the cross-functional workflow within the kitchen. If you're requiring 2 or 3 people to execute one dish when it can be executed by one, just simply by moving a couple pieces of equipment across the kitchen, then you're going to reduce your labor costs overall.
There we go. Two solutions, one problem, right?
Okay, I got a question on that. But what if you can't move your equipment and you have everything on one side? Now that when we were doing our concept, when we had to build it, we had to put everything electrical, like the ovens, the salamanders, all on the one side. And what if you can't move it? Something else there, you don't have the room.
Then maybe that's not the right solution for you.
Because remember, you can always look at other areas, right? That's the beauty of looking at the numbers, understanding your space, and then being able to come up with a solution. Like maybe you don't have to smoke the salmon for 3 hours. Maybe you're just going to do it for 2, or, those kind of things that you have to think about. Is that going to help?
Right. I was just saying in general, because sometimes when we are doing that, there's certain things he was telling us you can't move. You want to try and have everything in the same.
You got to keep all your cooking equipment under that hood. That's right.
Yep.
So
one other consideration with that would be to consider where the ingredient is and change the way that the ingredient availability is laid out. Maybe it's the sandwich prep table that's the problem, and you have them on the right side of the table when they actually be on the left. And that extra step may be enough to add you 10 more seconds per plate. So 10 seconds over 100 plates is
some good money.
So, yes.
And I worked at a place where it used to be in the old Steele's market. When we had Steele's, it was a grocery store, and they took over half of it. And I kid you not, I wore one of the, stepometer, the thing before iFit showed up, to track how many steps I took. And I walked 10 miles a day. Somebody paid me to walk 10 miles a day. And so those are things you have to when you're looking at this stuff. But like Patricia said, maybe you can't move your kitchen. But what could they do to be able to help with that process? You know, so that I wouldn't have to walk 10 miles a day.
Also, what if you need to adjust your menu because some of your menu items may require more steps, and you may have to have that labor cost to be up to keep your taste or your consistent taste going?
Yep.
Yeah,
So
fantastic one, right, Jeff?
it is really great. But on this assignment, if you say reduce your labor cost by changing your menu, I'm going to have no idea that's what you mean. So make sure you are as clear as possible about what solution you're talking about, what solution you're providing. If you're saying cut hours, try to be specific about where she can look at cutting hours. Be specific. Yes, please. Thank you. So we're next up, operating costs, $1,400. We already figured out $1,600 is all right. So operating costs as a whole look good. So even though we know categorically where our problems are and where they're not, now we want to dig in a little bit deeper. So we look at the details. Remember, these operating costs are really hard to have meaningful impact on. So in general, that's my last stop when I'm looking for problems from a cost perspective. I want to start up here. So if you look at cost of goods, you'll see that the sales are broken down the same way as these costs of goods. So you have a direct comparison. Food cost, you can compare to food sales. So if I do the math on that, I can see that $900 divided by 4710 cost divided by sales, Janet's at a 19% food cost. That's awesome, right? So I don't think food cost is our problem. But just from looking at these numbers, without even doing the math, can you guys spot where the big problem is for Chef Janet?
The wine.
Wine. Tell me about the wine.
It's almost as much as the food.
Okay, but you don't want to compare these costs to each other. You want to compare these costs to the sales for that category. So how do my wine costs look compared to my wine sales?
Her wine costs about 35% to 40%. So she's only making 15 to 20% over her wine.
Actually, she's at a 300% wine cost. She is losing $400 on wine for this amount of time. She's spending $600
$600. And only making $200.
Only making $200. So this is a fun one. Why would that be? What are some possible reasons for that? Getting her drink on, George. I love it.
Not charging the right amount for the wine as she's selling it.
Not charging the right amount. Menu price is wrong. What else?
Too big of a glass.
Overpouring. Huge problem. Rampant in our industry. Bartenders love to overpour. What else?
Her marketing.
How would marketing?
And what I mean by that is like maybe she's not selling it, like pairing it with her food.
Okay, how would that affect cost?
What?
How would her marketing make her costs more than her sales? I'm not telling you you're wrong, because I could tell you why this one possible right answer for that, but I want to hear your thinking here. Because I'm just not getting the connection here. And that's the key to this assignment, is really connecting the dots for me when I'm grading it.
Because remember, he's an investor, right? He's going to ask you these problems and he expects you to come up with a solution. And if you go to an investor and say, well, just because of labor, like that's not gonna work, right? They're gonna want to know, well, why? How? Those are things you have to answer for, like that an investor wants to know. So Chef Jonathan is your investor. Convince him that you know how to solve the problem.
So, Elena, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I was just trying to say I need all the dots connected. If you say marketing, say because maybe she's over promoting a discount, or maybe she put out the wrong price on marketing, as we said in the chat here, or one of 1,000 answers. It's hard to have a wrong answer with this assignment as long as you correctly identify the cost problem and you are actually explaining what you mean to me. So does that
So
make
what's
sense?
your answer?
My answer, personally, the biggest one I've seen with marketing affecting cost in this kind of big, huge way is coupons going out and people not realizing how many are going to come back to them.
Yeah, Groupon has killed businesses.
Yes. So
like,
you need,
and not just Groupon, just all of those style of businesses have, like, people don't realize they didn't do the numbers that you're doing right now and realize how much of a loss they were really gonna like take.
What
So-
about
What about
if she wasn't buying the correct wine choice for that area, or like doing her research to see what wines are popular, and she brought the too expensive wines or a different taste of wines, and nobody's really drinking those wines?
she bought a bunch of wine and it's sitting on the counter.
what
Yep.
about not having your staff trained to know what wine pairs with what?
That's a big one because then they're not pushing the wine. It's not selling. Another big one, theft, overpouring, unsupervised staff is a huge one. You leave your staff unsupervised and you have one problem child in the mix, that problem child is going to clean you out and everybody's going to follow suit because they'll turn your whole staff into problems. I've seen it. You want to make sure you have supervision. That's one of the reasons why we're so emphatic about that with your labor scheduling assignment.
That you still have time to turn in late tonight.
Late tonight.
11:59 p.m.
11:59 p.m. If you need to resubmit, please do that too. I do want to just cover one more quick thing about this. There are 3 tabs here at the bottom. If you don't see those tabs at the bottom, make sure you maximize the window. So you hit that little square that's at the top right. This guy right here, it should, if it has just one square, hit that button because otherwise those tabs might not show up and you're going to miss 2/3 of your assignment.
What tabs? I missed it.
Oh, okay.
That again?
At the bottom.
At the bottom here,
At the bottom of the screenshot.
those tabs will say Janet's Grand Events Catering, Jamie's Waffle Wagon, and Poor John's Pub. I will even do this if I can. So this is an actual copy of the assignment here.
Oh, okay.
At the bottom, yeah, Jamie's Waffle Wagon, Poor John's Pub. And so that's the first question. You do need to answer one more question on this. Which of these 3 businesses has the most potential to be profitable and why? That I'm going to leave totally up to you. Just as a hint, there's no wrong answer as long as you tell me why. All 3 of these businesses can be profitable. But if you don't tell me why, I can't give you credit. Questions about the homework assignment?
Not right offhand, no.
When's it due, Patricia? Just because you were the last one who spoke?
Tuesday at 11:59:59.
Yep. And when is everybody in here going to submit?
I'm going to try and get it done by Saturday.
There's going to be a chance to
Early.
tomorrow.
Perfect. Early. I love it.
Saturday or Sunday.
And then
Saturday.
what's due on Saturday?
Discussion forum.
Discussion.
And the knowledge checks are due on Tuesday as well. So make sure you guys are doing all 3 things for this week.
All right. How are you guys feeling? Feeling good? Yay.
Okay.
It's going to be great. It's fun. See, isn't it nice? Because now you can see the progression of why, figuring out my schedule and maybe not putting somebody on salary because that will work 60 hours at 40,000 because you just found out by looking at all those laws that you have to pay them overtime, right? And now you get to look at all this stuff and put it for your assignment. It's going to be great. Yeah, Sheriff, it's going to be awesome. Oh, God, yeah, I'm so glad you guys think so, too. Am I right, Jeff?
Totally. Absolutely. If you guys have questions, reach out. If you guys have questions on Tuesday night, chances are you're not going to get answers until Wednesday. So check out the assignment early and often and ask questions early, and you'll actually get a chance to get them answered before the deadline.
And then I hope everybody has a fabulous, fabulous rest of your week. Looking forward to seeing everybody doing their homework this weekend. That's what I will be doing for my schooling, is my homework this weekend. So
yeah, that's me. Everybody in the weekend
together. So have a great, great rest of your week. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in the discussion.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye. Thank you.